So here's an interesting question for you. Are expensive running shoes always better than mid-price or cheap running shoes? We've got a tendency to upgrade, but is it the case that the 2017 or 2018 shoe is going to be better than the 2015 or 14 shoe? In the US alone, there's 45 million units of running shoes sold each year, which means each household's buying one pair a year on average, raising about $3 billion. And Nike worldwide is selling 120 million pairs of running shoes, raising about $10 billion. Look, I'm as guilty as you. If I see something that looks great in the magazines, you're going to think it's going to improve your running or it's going to reduce injury. But what is the evidence for that? What is the evidence that expensive running shoes are going to outperform mid-price or cheap running shoes? That's what we're going to look at today. So let's break this down. And the first question is there a relationship between the price of the shoe and satisfaction? Well, Run Repeat has looked at this in a massive survey of over 134,000 runners, giving their feedback on many thousands of running shoes across multiple price ranges, and it turns out that there's no link between the expense of the shoe and the satisfaction. If anything, the more expensive the shoe, the less satisfied the consumer is. So there isn't a link between satisfaction and price, at least not in the direction that we're expecting. What about injury? Well, many studies have looked at whether running shoe design is going to prevent injury, particularly for those that have got excessive pronation on their step or excessive heel strike or excessive supination. And it turns out that those running shoes with a lot of cushioning or a lot of support or a lot of added extras haven't really improved or reduced injuries with time. In fact, you probably know as well as I do that those minimalist shoes from a variety of companies, those shoes with minimal back to front drop, have shown at least as little chance of injury as highly cushioned shoes. There really isn't much to choose between them, because what's influencing injury is the runner's natural style. Some runners naturally run with a heel strike pattern. It's not necessarily wrong. Sure, you can choose a shoe that works for that, but that isn't necessarily an expensive shoe. So there isn't a clear link, in my opinion, between shoe cost and prevention of injuries. What about comfort? Is there a link between shoe cost and comfort? Nearly every manufacturer tries to make a shoe that's reasonably comfortable, and the variables that determine comfort are very basic. They are forefoot width, heel width, correct fit, degree of padding on the inside. Those variables tend to be there with even basic shoes. And expensive shoes tend to be minimalist in design to get that lightweight. So probably they're not going to be maximizing comfort in all reality. So expense and comfort don't necessarily go hand in hand. What about aesthetics, the look of the shoe? Here I will concede that expensive shoes can look better than cheap shoes due to the time taken in the design and some of the slightly more expensive materials. I've got some examples here, and at the very cheap end of the market, something like this shoe from Aldi, not more than $10 or $20, is pretty ugly in my opinion, but it does the job fairly well, ironically. In the mid-price, something like this Nike Dart, around about $70 shoe. It's got all the elements you need for decent running. It's a neutral shoe. It's got good grip on the sole. It's got good heel support. It's got decent flexibility. And the weight is around 300 grams. That's not too bad. But at the high end, something like this new On Cloud in exclusive pure black, yeah, it looks awesome. It's super light, and yeah, it is attractive. So I will concede, aesthetics probably are linked a little bit with the cost. But at the end of the day, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I can't tell you what shoe is most attractive to you. And if a cheaper shoe looks good to you, that's great. There's no need to invest in a ridiculously expensive shoe. What about weight though? I mentioned weight, but how does that relate in detail to price? Well, the high end of the market, this On Cloud runner is around 200 grams or 7 ounces. In the mid-range, shoes are around 250 grams. In the low end, they're around 350 grams. But what's the effect of weight on running performance? Well, it turns out that each 100 grams saves you around about 1% of running energy, or improves your running time by around 1%. So the effect of that cost is extremely minimal for most leisure runners. Most joggers are not going to really benefit from that 1% gain with 100 grams. You'd have to be a really serious runner to benefit from that 100 gram saving. But if that's you, that's great. Go for it. I'm not saying you shouldn't go for an expensive shoe. I'm just saying keep your eyes wide open. Know that some of these factors are not linked with the expense of the shoe. And we should make our own minds up rather than being heavily influenced by the advertising of what to buy and when to buy it. All right, guys, a quick heads up there. Hope that's useful. Have a good one.